One evening, a respectful lady came to Aziz's huzur and told him about a problem her daughter, Ayesha, was having. She said it was back in 2001, right after her daughter entered college. The daughter had fallen in love with a boy who was not yet of marriageable age, so his family refused to consent. Undeterred, the young couple married in secret. Once their union became known, the boy's family, on a Friday, after nothing more than tea and snacks, honorably escorted the daughter from her mother's home to formally bring her into the son's household. In the first year of marriage, the daughter, now called Jui, became pregnant. Soon after her husband took his older brother and younger brother abroad, Jui miscarried. A year later, her husband returned. She became pregnant again, but again lost the child early. This happened 3 times in all. Her husband grew deeply distressed and, overcome with grief, went abroad once more. Despite her in-laws' repeated attempts to persuade her, Jui refused to relent, and arguments with her mother-in-law became frequent. Another issue was that the older brother, now many years married, remained childless. His wife quarreled so much with her mother-in-law that eventually she moved out on her own. Amid all this turmoil, there was a desperate longing for children in the house. Believing it would solve everything, Jui's mother-in-law impulsively took her aside and arranged a quick marriage for her younger brother. After that wedding, things proceeded smoothly, until Jui's mother-in-law suffered a stroke and became bedridden. The daughter-in-law was summoned to her bedside, and after the Maghrib prayer, sat beside her. At last, the mother-in-law confessed, "I fear I will not live much longer. I cannot take this secret to my grave. Forgive me and forgive Allah on my behalf. When I was little, I spent most of my time with my grandfather, so doted on by him that I thought he must be special." She went on to explain that her grandfather kept jinns, spirits, in his service. Late at night, she'd hear him softly reciting the Quran, and sometimes she saw 3 or 4 white-clad figures beside him, reciting too. When she asked him about it, he laughed it off, warned her never to tell a soul, even her mother, and explained that he never used jinns for magic or gain. He insisted all help should come from Allah alone, since jinn cannot aid the righteous, only those who engage in disbelief or idolatry. "Young girl," he told her, "if you insist on keeping these jinns, you must perform 5 daily prayers, pray tahajjud at night, and recite Quran in the still hours before dawn. Only then will they appear." Spurred on by curiosity, she tried, though at first she overslept and missed prayers. Gradually, she became punctual, and after 20 days of tahajjud, her grandfather set a final challenge. On the 21st night, she must recite the Quran alone, unaided. If she succeeded, he would allow her to see the jinn. That night, she performed her tahajjud and began. To her astonishment, she heard the Quran continuing behind her. Glancing back, she saw 3 radiant, fair men reciting alongside her. Terrified, she stopped, fainted, and later woke to her grandfather smiling. Over the following nights, he taught her the precise ritual to summon powerful jinn of the highest rank. One night she performed it alone, only to hear a deep voice, turn, and see a white-veiled woman with a rosary. The woman introduced herself as the Jinn King's wife, explaining that because the girl was still young, she could not withstand their power. The woman lamented that the ritual to send them away was even harder than calling them. Before she could learn it, the woman vanished in a flash of white cloth. Shaken, the girl realized her grandfather had erred in teaching her. He warned her she would now have to spend 90 days learning the ritual to dismiss the jinn. But then, unexpectedly, he died. The family mourned, but she, still a child, could scarcely comprehend the loss. A year later, on an Eid Eve, she decided to summon the jinn again, hoping to learn the banishing ritual herself. She performed tahajjud and the incantation, but nothing happened. Exhausted, she slept. only to wake hearing a child's cries. She found a beautiful little boy playing in her room, his clothing shining with light. Realizing he too was a jinn, she comforted him, but at dawn he vanished into thin air. Over the next days, she dreamed of countless white forms surrounding her bed. Guests arrived for Eid, yet she felt thronged by an invisible crowd. During prayer, she sensed many unseen behind her. That night she summoned the jinn again, this time the room filled with them. Terrified, she fell unconscious until her mother's call. The next day, her uncle Nazrul, also a Quran teacher, came. Concerned by her tale, he brought another huzur. They purified the house with Quran and water, then entered her grandfather's old room to exorcise the child jinn. In a struggle, the uncle forcibly ejected the little spirit into the courtyard, where it collapsed and lay motionless. He warned them the house had been haunted ever since the grandfather's rituals began. Years passed uneventfully. She married and had children. Then, 3 or 4 years ago, while cleaning the house, one of 4 talismans fell and broke. Her mother had already passed away, and no one took the broken charm seriously. From that day on, she began having harrowing dreams. She saw desperate parents pleading for their child's return, revealing tragic consequences of her summoning ritual. Alarmed, she rushed to Uncle Nazrul. There she found him gravely ill, speechless after a stroke. His last words before collapsing were, "Forgive me." A senior huzur, Qari Ibrahim, told her to come on a Tuesday. At each consultation, she dreamt nightly of the pleading couple. Qari Ibrahim explained, her grandfather had indeed been beloved by the jinn community and had a special bond with powerful tribes. By summoning them twice in succession, she had called forth the king's only son, a nascent spirit incapable of returning alone to its realm or speaking her language. Her uncle had captured him, bound him with a talisman, and exploited him to torment children at his Quran school, even extorting money in the name of healing. Over time, the captive jinn lost its power. But when her family's talismans broke, it struck back, attacking her uncle, leaving him a living corpse who could neither eat nor speak, and fleeing to the jinn world. Now, only she or her uncle could see him. She wept at the revelation that the boy's sorrowful parents, real jinn, had been appealing to her in dreams, unable to reach her while the talismans remained intact. Qari Ibrahim advised her to break all the charms, perform the precise banishing ritual over 2 nights, and beg the jinn in the name of Allah to return their child. He promised to enlist his own jinn students to help. Returning home, she secretly removed and discarded all the talismans in water. In her grandfather's room, she began the ritual. After 2 nights of tahajjud and incantation, an older jinn and a veiled lady appeared. Recognizing them, she continued until they disappeared, hoping at last to free the captive boy and reunite him with his grieving parent. For all these years, we have done everything we could to communicate with you, but you have sealed yourself off with a blasphemous talisman on your body. We cannot approach you. We simply cannot reach you. Please return our son to us. I told him everything in detail. The woman with him began to weep, saying, "I can't cry anymore. After all, these years my tears have dried up. Whatever you do, please return my son to me. I cannot bear another moment." We spoke until dawn, and with the first call to Fajr, they vanished. I was left in the greatest distress, finding that jinn and restoring him had become my solemn duty and the only way to atone for my sin. Day after day I summoned him, but he did not come. Meanwhile, his helpless parents appeared to me in spirit, begging for their son's return. One day I learned that my uncle, Nazrul, had died. After his death, I went to his house to see him. Even in death, a sinner must face either punishment or peace. But clearly he had punished reprieve. Torrential rain had made his grave difficult to dig. Those who washed his body said a horrible stench rose from it. Around midnight, with great hardship, he was buried. He had been beloved by many. So many came to his janazah that I scoured the crowd for the jinn's presence. Everyone knew my uncle as a good huzur, a respected madrasa teacher, and a perfect man. But none suspected his secret blasphemous practices. In the name of talismans, he had committed disbelief. He drew magic symbols, sometimes inscribing Quranic verses, then surrounding them with patterns that were clearly kufr. People took his charms believing they would work, but only Allah knows the terrible power they harnessed. Perhaps Allah sent revelations of consequences in this life itself. That night, I resolved to stay in my uncle's room and perform tahajjud there to summon the jinn. As I began, I sensed a presence in the far corner of the room, a filthy figure chained at the neck, crouching. Terrified, I addressed him, "Who are you?" He startled, hissed in rage, but could not free himself. He seemed to know me, gaining courage. I sat beside him, tried to speak, but he remained silent. Then, to my astonishment, he said, "I will go to my mother." At his plaintive plea, I could hold back my tears no longer. I begged his forgiveness for my reckless curiosity and asked how to resolve this. He could not help me. He knew nothing of that matter. As dawn broke and the call to prayer sounded, he dissolved before my eyes. Determined to find real help, I decided to summon Huzur Ibrahim to this house and informed my uncle's family. They believed me at once, for my uncle had suddenly become famous far and wide. People came to him with all manner of troubles, and he amassed wealth in an instant. When Huzur Ibrahim arrived, he was horrified by the bizarre, blasphemous implements scattered throughout the home. He said, "This is no mere house. It is a living hell, a manifest inferno. How can a scholar and teacher commit such filth? Can one deceive Allah himself?" With everyone's help, he gathered talismans, magical implements, red thread, needles, and more. He performed specific ruqya over each, then burned them in fire with Quranic invocations. After cleansing himself with a ritual bath and prayer, he gathered us and explained everything in detail. He said, "Since the best of creation is humanity, it is our duty to return that jinn to his family." He asked for our cooperation, which we all pledged. That very night after Maghrib, he led me into a room and showed me how to perform the precise ritual. In moments, several of his loyal jinn appeared. He told them to find any way to resolve this problem. They replied that it was beyond their power. The captive jinn was born with far greater gifts, and Allah had endowed him with special qualities. Were he to return to his parents, he might take terrible revenge for all his suffering. Though we thought him a fugitive, he remained bound in this world by the very ritual that brought him here, invisible to all of us. We had found signs of his rare workings, proof that he was no ordinary jinn and that he had not come by common methods. Hearing this, I said, "Since I am the cause of this, I offer anything in exchange for a solution." They conferred with the elders of the jinn community and promised to report back. At that time, Huzur Ibrahim left, promising to inform me of their decision on the ritual's outcome. He reminded me that my grandfather had taught me this exceedingly rare invocation. Through it, I alone controlled the jinn I had summoned, which was why no other jinn could influence him. He urged me to summon the captive jinn again and seek his cooperation. That night, I called him in my uncle's room. He remained silent as always. His parents continued to appear in my dreams, pleading every night for his release. The pain of their unbroken bond was beyond words. In despair, I visited my grandfather's grave, angry even at him for the suffering his teachings had unleashed, and wept without realizing it. That night I slept after tahajjud, then dreamt again. My grandfather appeared, lamenting his own regret. He said, "Because of my mistake, an innocent jinn child and his parents endure anguish. You must resolve this as soon as possible." I awoke with a start, resolved at last to act. The next day, I told Huzur Ibrahim everything. He too was astonished. After tahajjud that night, I again saw the captive jinn. First, I removed the filthy shackle around his neck, and immediately he returned to his true form, floating above me. He asked, "What must I do now?" Hearing his voice for the first time, I paused, then said, "Go back to your own world." He replied that he could not. He needed my permission. I said, "Until I grant it, at least remain clean and keep your purity, for I cannot bear to see you in filth." It was unbearable to see so beautiful a child reduced to such a state. At dawn, Huzur Ibrahim hurried to me and said he had found a remedy among his jinn allies, and that to free the captive jinn, we would need the help of his parents. He explained that my invocation derived from an ancient formula, and only a jinn with centuries of experience could release him. I returned home and, after tahajjud, saw his parents appear before me. I laid everything out for them and begged their help. They told me that in their realm, many jinn had been imprisoned long ago, trapped by disbelief and sinful magic. They would return at once and, the next day, identified an old jinn, 1,000 years in age, who could teach me the way to send their son home. When he was summoned, I saw him, a grotesque, deformed elder standing on 4 crooked legs like a crab. Accustomed to beautiful spirits, I was struck with horror at such ugliness. Trembling, I asked for the banishing method. He told me, and warned me never to perform it improperly, for the captive jinn might kill me if I erred. Meanwhile, the couple pleaded that I must free their son in exchange for teaching me this ritual. I promised, "By no cost will I fail to return your child, inshallah." I no longer thought of my own fate. The guilt of his captivity weighed heavily on me, and by his use in my uncle's blasphemous work, I felt responsible. Taking my resolve, I entered my uncle's room that night, summoned the captive jinn once more, apologized for my reckless acts, then applied the elder's method. Instantly, he vanished from sight. Huzur Ibrahim cautioned me to remain vigilant. Days passed. One evening at Maghrib, the jinn couple appeared. They said that their son, long confined in the human realm, had become willful and defiant. No one dared restrain him in the jinn world, for as the king's son, he was above discipline. Now he sought vengeance on me. To protect myself, they taught me certain talismans and practices, insisting I must perform them at least once daily. With those, I and my family remained safe. Sometime later, however, I suffered a sudden stroke and was unable to perform the required ritual. The captive jinn seized the chance to besiege me. I faced imminent death. Worse, he targeted my children yet unborn. Their parents, the jinn couple, were in agony, but human law and belief would not accept their pleas. Though Almighty Allah is omnipotent, I could not save my eldest children. I beseeched Aziz Huzur, "Please do something for my daughter and my son." Gripped by fear, the lady rushed to him. Aziz Huzur told her, "I do not summon jinn, but by faith in Allah and family traditions, I employ Quran, Sunnah-based remedies." From that conviction, he advised her to engage in 21 days of these practices. By Allah's mercy, her daughter conceived at the appointed time and gave birth to a baby girl, and on the 4th day, the grandmother, the very petitioner, passed away. The family remains healthy and well to this day, by Allah's grace. J. Barua then asked Aziz Huzur how he performed those remedies. Aziz Huzur replied, "I wrote certain Quranic verses on paper and by Allah's grace solved these complex problems. But remember, calling jinn is difficult. Keeping them under control is even more so. A single mistake can put your life in peril." And thus ends the tragic tale of an innocent jinn child, torn from his parents by a heedless curiosity, and the mother's lifelong atonement that followed.